Good morning. Thank you very much for chanting the Lotus Sūtra together with me this morning. And I would like to speak about the Gosho passage. Actually, it was a teaching of Nichiren Daishōnin in his oral teachings called the Ongi Kuden, which we read this morning. And the name of this particular writing was called Kanji no Koto. It was regarding the meaning of kanji. Okay, and I'm going to explain now. We'll reread the passage from Nichiren Daishonin's writings, and then we will explain what that means. So it's the significance of kanji, or to sustain or uphold our faith and practice in the Lotus Sutra. And it goes into, we'll go into a little bit more detail about what that entails. All right? So first of all, let's read the passage that we read this morning one more time together. In regards to the Kanji-hon, chapter 13 of Lotus Sutra, encouragement for upholding the sutra, Nichiren Daishōnin taught us in his oral teachings. The significance of the word kan, advise and encourage, of the word kanji, is to perform keta, which means to transform, influence, and improve others through instruction. While the word ji of kanji, uphold, observe, and maintain, is equivalent to Jigyō, or carrying out and maintaining one's own personal shugyo, the cultivation of faith, practice, and understanding of Buddhism. Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō encompasses both Jigyō and Keta. At this time, Nichiren, his disciples and followers, are upholding their own faith in Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō, while advocating its faith and practice amongst others. So it's a very short passage, but it's very profound. So I would like to talk about what this Jigyō Keta, which it mentions in here. Let's go into a little bit more detail. So first of all, to cultivate the way of the Buddha within your own life, and with all the merits and the virtues, the qualities of life, and other benefits that we can receive and accumulate from Buddhist practice, we use them then not only to keep them for ourselves, but to share them with others. In other words, we use them to help teach and guide other people too. Okay, through the things that we have achieved and learned and experienced through Buddhism. In other words, what has profited and helped you, you share with others. Okay, it's very simple. Let's look at the word Jigyō Keta, which in many translations is translated as practice for oneself and practice for others, which is a good translation, but slightly different. So let's look into it word by word, and so we can get a good understanding of what this means. Ji of Jigyō means self or I, and Gyō means practice. But it also means behavior, like how we compose ourselves, how we act, how we behave. And it also means to go. So it's how we are moving along the way on the path towards Buddhahood, how we are conducting ourselves along the Buddha's path. So this Gyō is a very important word. Ke means to transform or change, influence, and improve others through instruction and guidance and leading them. Okay, and then ta just means another person, okay, or other people. Okay, so this term is a very simple term and is widely known, often used with the translation of practice for oneself and practicing for others. However, the Lotus Sutra talks about what is the practice that we should observe. Okay, what is this practice for oneself? And this is in chapter 10, or the Hoshi-hon, of the chapter of Lotus Sutra, which talks about the 5 types of the practices of Myōhō Renge Kyō. 50 no myōgyo in Japanese. Okay, and they are, I'll say them first in Japanese and then I'll explain them all one by one. Is 10 doku, ju, geisetsu, and shosha. It's also mentioned in other parts of the Lotus Sutra as well. So it's very, very important and the basic or fundamental way of observing Buddhist practice. So the first one, juji, ju means to receive. So it's we receive and embrace the teachings of Buddhism and we begin practicing. And then ji means to uphold, okay, maintain. And so at this time we maintain and protect our faith and Buddhist practice. So we work hard to, of course, not only embrace it, but then to continue and to protect our Buddhist practice so that it always remains vibrant and pure. Okay? So that is joji. The next one is doku, which means to read and study the Lotus Sutra. So we read it, we try to understand it, we study it. That is doku. Okay? And the next one is ju, which is to recite and chant the Lotus Sutra, repeating the Buddha's words, actually reciting formally, like in the form of Gongyo, and we recite them to the Buddha himself. The next term, geisetsu. Gei means to understand, and setsu means to explain. So there are many parables, many teachings, many examples that are brought out within the Lotus Sutra. And so sometimes, for some people, it can be hard to understand. So one of our first homeworks, I guess you could say, our first tasks, is to untangle what we see in front of us and start to really understand bit by bit, piece by piece, what the Lotus Sutra is teaching us. Okay? And then from there, after understanding, and we try really hard to comprehend even deeper just not only what the actual words mean, but the deeper meaning, and then put them into our life. But also then, from what we have learned, the part of setsu is then to explain and share what we have learned with other people. Okay? So this is in a very clear manner, and this is very, very important practice. I would say also for today, we might want to include in this modern age, it's not technically part of what is written in the Lotus Sutra, but I think it's pertinent for today, is that translating the Buddha's words into the various language and then speaking to people about Buddhism to the best of your ability is very, very important. Okay, so that people have a chance to encounter Buddhism and to know and understand it themselves. Teaching can take various forms. It can be done, obviously, by the classical forms of just teaching it or just discussing Buddhism with other people. But also one thing we need to also remember, this is especially important for today's world, is to be coherent. In other words, our words and actions should match. It's not we talk about Buddhism with our mouths and then do something else. It's really important that we put Buddhism into practice and we practice what we are studying and learning so that people can see this coherent nature or practice that we are observing. This will inspire a lot of people. Furthermore, we must always show kindness to people and respect. So living our life in this kind of manner then will be a good example. Living our life as a good Buddhist. And this will teach people a lot also from our own good example what it means to be a Buddhist, what it means to follow the Lotus Sutra. This we do to the best of our ability. Okay. The last one is shosha. And so shosha is, sho means to write and sha means to copy. So we write out either by hand or copying the Lotus Sutra in other forms, and we transmit so that other people have a chance to read the Lotus Sutra. So it gets transmitted to others and also for future generations. So this is very, very important. Traditionally, it was always done by hand, letter by letter, and with a brush and ink. At a time when there were printing presses or computers or internet or things like this. But today, we can use all other kinds of formats to accomplish the same thing. So the Lotus Sutra can be published in printed form, in book form, or on the internet, or in different forms of the media, and then widely distributed to many, many people in many different countries. And this is a way to help people to come in contact with the Buddha's teachings of the Lotus Sutra, which is actually coming in contact with the deep meaning and the vastness of what it means to be a Buddhist, what it means to practice Buddhism, and above all, what is the Buddha's enlightenment, and how each and every one of us can then, in turn, become enlightened. So these are very, very important teachings to promote. The great master Tentai of China wrote a number of very important documents, one of which is called the Hokekyō, which means the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra. And in this writing, he makes reference to these 5 mystic or 5 marvelous practices of the Myōhō Renge Kyō that we just just discussed. And he calls them 5 types of Dharma masters. So he refers to them not only as fundamental practices, but also as our fundamental masters of how we ourselves can truly learn the meaning of Buddhism and become a master of the Buddhist doctrine and teachings and practice. So he calls, first of all, the first one, Juji, or receiving and upholding Buddhist faith, is called the first Dharma master. And the second Dharma master is Doku, or reading the Lotus Sutra. And the third Dharma master is Jigyō, reciting the Lotus Sutra. While the fourth Dharma master is Gesetsu, which is understanding the Lotus Sutra and then explaining it in a clear manner to other people. And the last or fifth Dharma master is Shosha, that is to copy and distribute the Lotus Sutra to as many people as possible. So these are 5 Dharma masters which in turn teach us the true meaning of the Lotus Sutra, and are based on those 5 fundamental practices or observances that we discussed. Nagarjuna, in his commentary on the Great Perfection of Wisdom, also called the Daichidoron, singles out a 6th type of Dharma master. It's very interesting. So he doesn't stray from these, but he puts them all together. So he emphasizes it's important not to observe just one only of these 5, but to keep them all together and observe all of them. And this unification of all of these practices is what he calls the 6th Dharma master. Okay? So this shows that these practices, I think also we can, if we look at them very carefully, we can see that the spirit of the Bodhisattva, that is practicing for ourselves in the manner which we explain, but also sharing them with others so other people can in turn become a Buddha. It shows the true spirit of what it means to be a Bodhisattva, and also the heart of Mahayana Buddhism, the spirit of Mahayana Buddhism and the Bodhisattva way. We see this also in one of our basic prayers that we recite every single day, and that is called the Shigu Seigan. Shigu Seigan. Shigu means 4 widely performed, and Seigan, Sei means to make a vow, and Gan is also a prayer or to ask a grand desire. So there are the 4 great vows and desires of a Bodhisattva, to translate it a little more properly. And we've read these today. Shūchū muhen seigan do, bonno mushu seigan dan, homu mujin seigan chi, butsudo mujo seigan jo. We read them today during our morning prayers. But I would like to read now to you a little bit more of an extended translation, so maybe we can understand these 4 vows and 4 prayers of a Bodhisattva in a little deeper manner. Okay? So, Shūchū muhen seigan do. The amount and types of living beings are countless. However, I deeply desire and vow before the Buddha at this moment to truly strive to save all of them. Okay? Bonnomushu seigandan. Our desires, anxieties, mental torments, and various attachments are inexhaustible. However, I deeply desire and vow before the Buddha to strive to overcome, extinguish, and tame each and every one of them. Homomo jinsei ganchi. The Buddha's teachings are vastly profound and immeasurable. However, I deeply desire and vow before the Buddha at this moment to strive to study, know, and understand them all. Butsudo mujo seiganjo. There is nothing higher in this world than the way of the Buddha. I deeply desire and vow before the Buddha at this moment to strive with all my might to attain this unreachable and sublime path of the Buddhahood and attain enlightenment within my own life. So actually those 4 prayers that we say at the very end of Gongyo are very, very powerful and the core spirit, the foundation of what it means to practice the Lotus Sutra. Furthermore, we just discussed the Hokemongu, the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, but Tiantai also added that cultivating Buddhist practice by oneself is called Jigyō, or self-practice, while making this useful and beneficial to others is equivalent to Keta, or influencing, improving others. Influencing, improving, and guiding others. This means that practicing and training oneself to the point we become self-reliant in Buddhist faith and practice, we will ultimately influence and be of great inspiration ourselves to other people. So don't take for granted your own Buddhist practice. What you do, of course you do for yourself, but other people also see it, and it can become what you do in your own life, even though you think maybe it is unimportant, or what you do is unimportant, actually can deeply affect and encourage many, many people. Right? Many people might think that Buddhism is difficult to understand, and they try their best to study, and they sometimes think, well, I'll never become enlightened like the Buddha, even though the Lotus Sutra teaches us that we can. But I would like to point out to you that actually the Buddha left all of his teachings here so that we could all, one by one, step by step, arrive at the same enlightenment of the Buddha. Okay? And the Lotus Sutra emphasizes quite strongly. We might, if we look at the weather right now, and we see it's still a little bit wintry, but winter's coming to a close, and spring is fast approaching. We're in the cusp between the two, and we see days that are cold and then days that are warmer, and some of the flowers are starting to bloom. Springtime is starting to unfold before us. Okay, it's also at this time that people often here in this area, which is an agricultural area, start to plant lots of vegetable gardens. Okay, besides the various crops that are planted here in the area, a lot of people also devote themselves to planting gardens. They begin now so that in the times when summer arrives, then they'll be able to reap a harvest and enjoy the fruits of their efforts. So let's take a look at a vegetable garden. Okay, and you might think, what does that have to do with Buddhism? Well, let's take a look. To plant a good vegetable garden that will produce fruit and vegetables, of course, it needs water and sunshine and all that, and good soil, but it also needs the care of the person who is planting it. So to begin with, maybe the soil is tilled, and they're freed from rocks and pebbles and stones and things like this, and also weeds. Then seeds are planted, then covered up with the soil, and then watered. And later, the seeds will begin to sprout, and as they grow, maybe other weeds will come. So the gardener has to be very attentive to make sure that weeds do not overcome these seedlings and choke them. So a lot of care is taken to help raise the nice plants out of small seedlings. And with time, these seedlings grow and become small plants and then larger plants. And finally, they become adult plants and start to flower. And then they forms of fruit and vegetables. Okay, and as they mature, after they mature, then, of course, all along this time, still care is being taken, and they're watering and weeding and things like this. And if there's any pests, they are taken care of so that the plants can grow up well. And in the end, they have vegetables and fruit that can be harvested and enjoyed. So you might think, well, what does that have to do with Buddhist practice? Well, it's that we too, in our daily Buddhist practice, every day, whether it be offering incense, reciting the sutra, offering flowers, water, fruits, and things like this as an offering, talking to people about Buddhism, studying Buddhism ourselves, every single effort that we make, even reflecting on a Buddhist teaching and thinking, what does this mean? Now, what does this mean for my life? How can I incorporate this teaching into my life and live it to be even a better Buddhist? Okay? So all of this, every single effort you make, all is like this vegetable garden. All the care and the nurturing that went in to help a garden to grow from seed into saplings and then full-grown plants that produce fruit is the same process will happen within our own lives. Okay, so every single effort that you make helps us to achieve an even stronger and more pure faith and Buddhist practice. So let's not forget this. This is very, very important. And as our Buddhist practice progresses, our sensibility towards life also grows and deepens. Okay? And as our understanding of Buddhism and then also our understanding of Buddhism also deepens and expands. It's a very wonderful process, but it all begins with every little moment of care that we use in our own Buddhist practice day by day. Okay? Every single effort means a lot. Therefore, just as we saw in the example of the vegetable garden, and all the care, the dedicated care that was used to help grow the garden, also too, our sincere faith and consistently devoted Buddhist practice will help us all to become a master on the Buddha's teachings and truly incorporate them into our own lives so that we too will become enlightened. Okay. And one other thing I'd like to underline here is we talked about how our own practice and devotion toward Buddhism and taking care of other people around us, those two things together will deeply touch the hearts of other people and inspire them also to lead a life based on Buddhism. This happened during the time of the Buddha. As if you remember, the Buddha, after he attained enlightenment, he spoke to 5 monks that were around him, and they were so inspired by what they saw, the changes and development of the Buddha, that they then decided to leave the old practices and follow Shakyamuni Buddha and became his first disciples. As did many other people. As soon as they saw the Buddha's example, they too became inspired to follow him, to learn from him. And they also were inspired to themselves want to become a Buddha themselves. Okay? So every effort that you make, the way you care for yourself in your own Buddhist practice and the people around you, okay, normally in life we are only thinking about ourselves and we don't worry so much about other people. But in Buddhism, this is not what we do. It's equal. The practice we do for ourselves and the care and concern for other people around us are on an equal standing, an equal footing. And through this devoted care towards Buddhist practice and other people, many other people too will want to follow our own example and themselves be inspired towards Buddhahood. So this is the meaning of Jigyō Keta, one's personal practice, and then also helps to lead and guide other people towards enlightenment. This is the real deep meaning of Jigyō Keta. With that, I'd like to close by rereading just one more time the passage from Nichiren Daishōnin's writings. We can reflect further one more time on what we have read and studied today. In regards to the Kanji-hon, the 13th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, encouragement for upholding this sutra, Nichiren Daishōnin taught us in his oral teachings the significance of the word kan, advise and encourage of kanji, is to perform keta, which means transform, influence, and improve others through instruction. While the word ji, uphold, observe, and maintain, means jigyō, carrying out and maintaining one's personal shūgyō, the cultivation of one's own faith, practice, and understanding of Buddhism. Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō encompasses both Jigyō and Keta. At this time, Nichiren, his disciples and followers are all upholding their own faith in Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō while advocating its faith and practice amongst others. Okay. So with that, I'd like to conclude my words for today, and thank you very much for listening. I wish you a wonderful Friday afternoon coming up and a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you again on our next appointment at Renkoji Temple on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. here on Facebook. Okay? Thank you so much for listening. See you soon. Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō. Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō. Namu Myōhō Renge Kyō. Thank you. Good day to you all. Bye-bye.